Welcome to Halacha in a Year, where we can get to learn all the most relevant halacha through the prism of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You are listening to Rabbi Ya'akov Trump. This year is kindly sponsored by the Moshe Group and CA in zechus of Rivka Biela, bas נחמה שיפרה, and in honor of Rabbi Trump.
Today we're going to be learning the halachas of Kiddush and Shabbos meals. This is part 1, and we're in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Siman Zayin, the 77th chapter of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Today, in part 1, we're going to examine 3 concepts. That's the Kiddush at night, the types of wine, and laws around the night Kiddush. Let's jump straight in. The Torah tells us, you should remember the day of holy to make it holy. And this is understood by the Gemara is Zachreu Zechiras Shabbos Kiddush. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu invites the human being in to sanctify the day of Shabbos, albeit that Shabbos comes in automatically, whether we like it or not, at sunset on a Friday afternoon for 25 hours. Nonetheless, the Torah gives us the capacity to sanctify it when it comes in and when it goes out. And therefore, that's what we call Kiddush and Havdalah. Chazal understood that that this is to be done over wine, and therefore the Kiddush that we do is being part of bringing in Shabbos and taking out Shabbos as well. Let's look at a few basic questions. When it comes to the Kiddush on Friday night, we're going to look at 7 basic questions. Can I make Kiddush before dark? The answer is yes. Shabbos may be brought in earlier, and if it may be brought in earlier, I may do Kiddush even when it's still daylight, as long as it's after Plag HaMincha, which is 1.25 relative hours before the end of the day. May I eat the Shabbos meal before it's dark? The answer is yes again. The Mishnah Berurah does suggest having a kazayas of bread after it becomes dark. The Kitzur also points out that if one usually davens Ma'ariv and Kriya Shema after dark in the weekday, then really one should be careful not to begin the meal within 30 minutes of becoming dark, when our obligation of Kriya Shema would start. But if one has already started the meal, which is most likely by the time it's already 30 minutes till dark, then it's all right to continue the meal and say Kriya Shema when one finishes it. What can I eat before Kiddush? So one is not allowed to eat or drink anything before one does Kiddush on a Friday night. One has to wait till one does Kiddush, and we'll see a similar thing in the morning of Shabbos as well. What does Kiddush look like? So there's really 3 paragraphs. The first is the paragraph of Vayechulu, and that is the paragraph which comes from the beginning of the second paragraph of Bereshis, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu describes how he ceases from work on the second day of creation. Then there's a bracha on the wine, and there's a bracha on Shabbos, the Kadesh Shabbos, which talks about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the nation of Israel the Sabbath. So what position should I be in when doing Kiddush? So for the first section, which is Vayechulu, it should be said standing. But for the second section, for the 2 brachos, that should be done sitting. Because the first part is a testimony done standing. And then there's an element of the second brachos being an element of a birkas hanenin as well, of a bracha of enjoyment of this world, which does require kfios, which means that people need to be joined, and they are joined by being sitting around the same table as well. Some of them may like to stand the entire time, and this is based on a Kabbalistic teaching of the Arizal. Rav Moshe Feinstein points out that if one does not have that in one's family, may like to do the Kabbalistic teaching of standing the entire time, the proper way to do it would be standing for the first section and sitting for the second section. Are women obligated in Kiddush? The answer is yes. Women are obligated in all the positive and negative mitzvahs in Shabbos in the same way that men are. Usually women are obligated in all the negative commandments in the Torah, and the positive ones, which are time-bound, less so. But when it comes to Shabbos, because Zachar and Shamar, because the positive and the negative of Shabbos are mentioned in B'dibur Echad, in the two sets of Aseres Adibros, a woman is obligated in all the positive mitzvahs in Shabbos in the same way that a man is as well. So let's sort of take a classic case. So let's say there is a 12-year-old boy and his mother, a grown woman who are at home for Shabbos. Who would say Kiddush? So it would be the woman who would say Kiddush, because she is obligated to arise from a biblical level, whereas the boy is only responsible on a Derabanan, on a rabbinic level. This is true even if he's 13 and hasn't reached physical puberty as well, then he's still on a Derabanan level. If she did recite the Amidah of the Friday night davening, it is arguable that she could have fulfilled her mitzvah Kiddush via Chul, and perhaps the 13-year-old boy could say it for her in that case. Let's jump straight into the types of wine. So which wine should I be using for Kiddush? So 3 suggestions that the Kitzur makes is: 1 is it's best to use the wine which is the best type of wine. Number 2 is it's best to use the wine which is older. Number 3 is best to use wine which is red. What happens if there is no regular wine available? So So one can make Kiddush on raisin wine, as long as it's something which one can say hagefen on, then one would be able to do this. So it might be different, we'll see, when it comes to Kiddush in the day. What happens if this is no wine? There's no hagefen possibility at night. So in that case, I want to say Kiddush on the challah, on the bread. How does that work exactly? So it would be like a regular Kiddush, just instead of saying Borei Pri Hagefen on the wine, one would say Hamoitzi Lechem Min Haaretz. What if the wine turned to vinegar? So the wine is already aged. One cannot say Hagefen on it. What happens if it just smells bad but tastes like wine? One can still not say the Kiddush on it. What happens if the bad smell came from the container it was in, not from the wine itself? It's still disqualified. What happens if the wine was left uncovered, open for a while? So in that case, the Kitzur says it is best not to be used for Kiddush, and he quotes the pasuk which describes when you bring such a offering to your pecha, to your stately governor, you wouldn't do that. Meaning it's not appropriate, it's not the right thing. So you wouldn't do that for your governor, although technically speaking it's all right. Then one should certainly not do it for Kiddush or the davar shebikdusha in this case as well. What happens if the wine has white dots on the top? One can strain it and then one can use it. But if one cannot, it is best, one can use it, but obviously preferable to find something else. What happens if the wine has a white film over the top, so one cannot use it? Mishnah points out that if you remove the film, it can be used. Obviously, alternatives are better. Can cooked wine, yain mevushal, be used? The answer is yes. Can wine with added sugar or flavor be used? Yes, the Kitzur points out that it is best to avoid either of these since they could not be used on the Mizbeach. Mishnah says, if the better of the wines is the yain mevushal, or the wine which has got added flavor, then use that because it is the better of the wines. We're looking at our third concept today, and that is the laws around Kiddush at night, and we're going to look at 11 questions. Are there any special requirements for the Kiddush cup? The answer is yes. It needs to be clean, undamaged, and all the requirements of the Kiddush, of the wine cup used for benching as well. Same goes for Kiddush in the day, and same goes for Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos. What size does the Kiddush cup needs to be? So it obviously needs to be the minimum shiur of a revius, which is either 86 milliliters according to Rabkha or 150 milliliters according to the Chazon Ish. The Kitzur suggests a very fascinating minhag where he says that some people have the custom to have a very large cup for Kiddush on Friday night, drink enough of it to fulfill one's obligation, but then take the remainder and pour it into a smaller cup, do that in the Kiddush of the day, drink enough of that, and then pour the remainder into a smaller cup for Havdalah. So one has 3 sets of brachas on it by the time it's at the end. The Mishnah Berurah said discourages such a practice, and generally says we have a separate cup each of those 3 opportunities. In what state are the challahs? The challahs need to be covered. Why should they be covered? So 2 reasons. One is because, technically speaking, the bracha of the hamoitzi should go first, but because we're putting Kiddush first, we cover the bread so as not to embarrass it by being put second. And number 2 is the manna was covered. It was between 2 layers of dew, and so therefore we have it. The bread is also covered in this respect. What happens if I'm doing Kiddush on the challahs? So in this case, I'm now obviating the reason of the challahs being offended. So one still covers it because of the second reason, because of the way that the manna was covered. How much wine should I drink? So the person who's doing Kiddush needs to do at least a cheekful of obviously it's subjective, a cheekful of their cheek for it to be valid. Should the others drink? The answer is yes. Others should drink. It's a special mitzvah to drink from the kos shel bracha. Even if they didn't, they have fulfilled their obligation. But it's a beautiful thing to drink from the kos shel bracha. Can someone who cannot drink wine or grape juice make Kiddush? The answer is no. Better not to make Kiddush for other people if one cannot drink it right afterwards oneself. Does there need to be a bracha achrona for Kiddush? So I didn't need to say ala gefna or priya gefna afterwards. The answer is no, because it'll be covered by the Birkas Hamazon. There are those who question this, and some people are makbid to have a kos shel bracha at the end of on the benching, and then say a bracha achrona on that, and have in mind on the Kiddush. But that doesn't seem to be common practice. If I drink a new wine in the meal, is a new bracha required of Borei Pri Hagefen? The answer is no, because the Kiddush will cover all wine which will be said were had during the meal. What happens if I did Kiddush, and as I finish doing my Kiddush, I should look in the cup and I see that it's not wine? It's just another liquid. What should I do? So, it depends. If there was wine at the table, and I was intending to drink the wine on that table, no new Kiddush needs to be said. I just pour out that wine and drink it. If there was wine in the house, which I intended to use in the meal, but it's in the kitchen, it's not on the table, then I can run and go get that, and then I would not need to say I have a new Borei Pri Hagefen. but I would need to say the second bracha Asher Kiddushanu should be repeated again. If the liquid turns out to be Chama Medina, so let's say it's a beer or something which is seen as the natural go-to drink of enjoyment and that people have, in that case, one would just say She'akol, and it would be sufficient in this b'diavad situation as well. If one had the minhag to wash and then do Kiddush at HaMotzi, so the Yekka sometimes do this, then one would just say HaMotzi, and then one would be fulfilled the obligation of the Kiddush on that bread. And if none of these are true, then the Kiddush needs to be repeated, because the Kiddush on a liquid which is other than wine is not sufficient if none of these other options exist. With this, you conclude the first section of Kiddush and the Shabbos. Have a wonderful and meaningful